First full week of July trading, I'm going to get you ready in today's Sunday setup and show you why this pattern of lower highs that have been printed on the Qs and the SPX have to end, and the bulls have to push it higher, create a new recent high if we're going to see the rally that typically takes place in early July continue. Can the bulls get the momentum going this week? Find out all of that and more in today's Sunday setup. Let's go.
Tick by tick.
What is going on, everyone? Jeremy Ritz here. Courage pays better than fear. Back with another Sunday setup. And just to point out here at the start of this video, my internet is down and it won't be fixed until Wednesday. So I'm recording this off the signal on my phone. It is weak. That's why we are not doing a live stream. So I'm trying to get as much into this video as fast as I possibly can just to get you prepped for the week ahead. And we're going to start here with the data. We're going to jump right in. And bear with me because my computer is loading a little slower. But on Monday, July 6th, that is tomorrow, we're going to get ISM Services PMI that is coming in at 10 a.m., forecasted to come in at 54.2. On Tuesday, not much of anything coming in that we want to pay attention to. On Wednesday, we are going to get some significant information coming in at 4 p.m. Eastern time. This is a change under the Kevin Warsh-led Fed. We are going to get the FOMC minutes. More than likely, they're going to be hawkish, but I thought it was interesting that they're waiting until the market closes in order to release that, because that will have an impact, but that's not going to happen until post-market. And then on Thursday, July 9th, we get existing home sales coming in at 10 a.m. And then on Friday, not much doing. And don't forget that basically earnings season is done for now. Next week, the big banks started off and we're into another round. So it's going to be a quiet week on the earnings front. Now, let's just take a look at the SPX here. And we can see that we continue to set lower highs. That is the pattern. That is the trend. And guys, if you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, make sure you do that right now. And if you're looking how to trade the markets, check out all about one-on-one coaching with me, yours truly, down in the description below. Now, back to the video. In order for the bulls to continue to push this thing up, what I'm watching is this recent high made here on June 15th. We have to break above that, and we have to start squeezing higher and take out the all-time high that was set up here on June 2nd around 76.21. So we need to see strength from the bulls if that is going to happen. And last week was a shortened trading week. We saw the volume dip a little bit. And on Friday, we got a bit of an indecision candle, equal selling and buying pressure here. It was a bit of a red day. We did see a big sell down in the chips. We were hanging out right at that point of control there on that large volume node. We did push below the 10 and the 20 EMAs. And keep an eye, if we come back down below that, watch that 50 simple moving average again as a bouncing spot, because you can see, even though we do continue to set lower highs, we are setting higher lows. So it's almost like the price is building to a point of pressure. And let's see if that leads to a breakout or a breakdown. Now let's hop over to the Qs, and bear with me because my internet is operating from a phone. So again, it is slow in the neck of the woods where I am, but you can see again here, same thing. We continue to make lower highs. We have not set a new high here on the Qs, but we did come down and test that 50 simple moving average on the daily on Friday, where a bounce did come in. But notice that we are below the 20, we are below the 10 EMA, but we also continue to set higher lows. So again, the price is building to a point, pressure is building there, and we did see a bit of an uptick in bearish volume on Thursday, that shortened week. Coming over to IWM, the Russell 2000 small caps. Let's take a look at it as we wait for it to load. Come on, here we go. So we can see here, this one set new all-time highs on Wednesday, July 1st. We got to a high of 302.77. The bulls try to press this thing up on Thursday. You could see the bearish volume picked up, and the bears press it down, push it down below that 10-day exponential moving average, nearly got down to the 20, and we actually did close above that 10. So this one does stay in a bullish trend. Really, everything is still in a bullish trend. We did see some profit taking come in there. But notice, if you do look just at last week, Monday through Thursday, we do see a decline in the bearish volume. Let's just take a look at the weekly and see what IWM looks like on that chart here as we wait for it to load. And again, it's interesting to see that small caps are continuing to push higher with the concerns that rates are going to be hiked. But we can see here on the weekly, you do have a bearish Harami candle, a bearish candle closing inside of a bullish candle, which typically indicates that there's more downside coming. But no, we are seeing the volume decline a little bit for the bear. So this one could go either way. This has had some strength, and we have seen the SPX and the Qs chill out a little bit while IWM was pushing higher. So let's see if this thing wants to just chop around a little bit. Maybe the SPX and Qs push up while IWM and the Dow Jones take a little bit of a breather. But we did see a little bit of selling pressure come in there on Thursday. And then the DIA, the Dow Jones Industrial, closed positive, a new all-time high on Friday of 528.20. And we could see that it came off of those highs, but this thing continues to push up. So it's really been IWM and the Dow Jones that have been pushing here up 1%, a little over 1%. And again, we could see that the volume did dip a little bit this week. So remember, when you have prices pushing higher on lower volume, you have to be careful about buying into the reliability of that price action. It could be a little bit weaker. But again, I'm looking to see if we can get a little bit of rotation out of IWM and the Dow Jones back into the SPX and the Qs this week. So that's what I'm going to be watching. And then we take a look at Bitcoin. Bitcoin is finally starting to show a little bit of life, and we can see that it has had 1, 2, 3, 4 green days in a row into Saturday. Right now we are red here on Sunday, but we are about 20 minutes away from futures opening. But it's good to see Bitcoin getting a little bit of a rebound, but notice the volume did decline here. But let's see, can the bulls push this thing up and turn this into a double bottom? It would be a higher low, lower low double bottom. And we're going to watch this price area right here around 67,236 is the neckline. A break above that, which would line up with your 50 simple moving average, would confirm that double bottom. And then the price targets that you're watching from there would be your 100 simple moving average right around 70,967 and 17 cents. And then up to your 200 around 74,711. So those would be the price areas that we're watching there. And let's take a look at some of the other areas of interest here in terms of the chart. We can see that the dollar did sell down there on Thursday. So we saw some weakness coming in. We want to see more weakness come into the dollar if stocks are going to rally harder. When we take a look at gold, gold finally started to get a bid after being very weak for quite some time. And we can see that it did gap up here on Friday. Found some resistance right there at the 20 EMA, a little bit of a double bottom right off of that 200 simple moving average on a daily. So let's see if gold wants to continue to get a bit of a bid and push higher, because we can see that it's set lower highs here. And let's see if it wants to get running. TLT. So this is our bond chart that I like to follow just to get an idea of what people are doing with bonds and how the yields are reacting. We can see that the 20-year Treasury bonds, not much movement there on Thursday. We're waiting for the chart to load here. Bear with me. But you could see that we are still below that 50 simple moving average. We were below it on Wednesday. We stayed below it on Thursday. After we had a nice push higher, we nearly got up to that 200 simple moving average at 87.81 before we got rejected. And so when people are selling down bonds, we know that the 10-year Treasury yield, what typically happens to that, it goes higher. And again, we're going to see that when the chart loads here, again, because my internet is not cooperating. So I appreciate you guys sticking around here with me. But you can see we got back above that 50, the 10, the 20. We are below that trend line here. So what I want to see with this 10 years, do we come up and retest into that trend line, get rejected, and start heading back lower? That's what I'm watching for, the 10-year yield. And remember that the 10-year yield has an impact on mortgage rates. It's not the federal funds rate that controls it. So as that 10-year yield comes lower, that is beneficial for anybody who is attempting to get a mortgage. Then we take a look at the VIX, the mighty VIX. We can see that we continue to head lower. Again, I'm watching that 1342 mark from December. That was the recent low here on the VIX. Can we get back down there? But we've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 red days in a row on the VIX. Volatility is dropping. Can we get more of a decline here come tomorrow on Monday? I think we can. Let's keep an eye on that, as long as all things stay calm geopolitically. And on the AI being a bubble, the stock market being overvalued front, we should see the VIX come a little bit lower. Taking a look at USO, this is the United States Oil Fund. We did see oil continue to fall last week as the tensions between Iran and the United States kind of dwindled a bit and calmed down, and we could see that selling continued there. We are now hanging out right on that 200 EMA on the daily. You have the 200 SMA at 95.38. If there is more progress being made, this thing will come farther. And then we want to watch to see if there is a bounce that comes in at that 200 simple moving average. And again, futures have not opened yet. They're opening at 5:45. So we'll take a look at that. But putting everything together, again, the beginning part of July is bullish. We did see a bit of a sell down come in there on Thursday. Will that continue to start the week? We will find out. Again, not much has changed. We are still extended to overvalued levels. Things are stretched. We did see the AI trade get sold off a bit, and potentially maybe we're going to continue to see some rotation into the crypto space, into Bitcoin, and we might see some more buyers come in there. But again, the weakest part of July is the second half. These next 2 weeks should be bullish if we follow seasonality. All right, so let's get into the tickers for the Courage community in terms of what they requested. All right, so let's get into the Courage community tickers that they requested, starting with Carvana. And we can see that this thing has struggled to get above the 100 simple moving average on the daily. Look at this resistance and how strong it is. And we can see that we are being held back here by the 100, the 50, the 200. But if it is able to begin clearing some of these simple moving averages on the daily chart, there is room for it to run. But the first area that we want to watch is closing above the 100, which is 68.56. If it can get above that, then it does have room up to your 50, which is going to be 70.74. And then from there, you have the 200 at 73.20. So again, this thing is just kind of chopping sideways. It's not really giving too much credible information in terms of how it's going to move. So you just want to keep an eye on this until it shows some life, because it just continues to really just consolidate and move sideways. But you do have the point of control right at where the price action is. You have lots of action on the visible range volume profile, and we are seeing the momentum begin to creep up over that 50 line. So this one could be getting ready to make a move, but it's got to clear some of those simple moving averages that are overhead that are holding it back as we speak. And then the next one we're going to look at is ticker symbol DA dash as we wait for it to load. And this thing has just been on a ripper here since Monday, June 15th, straight up. And we closed at 192.01 here on Friday. And you could see the next point of resistance for this thing at 199.13. So it does have some room before it's going to face any challenges from the moving averages. You have the 50 right here below the 100. It looks like it's going to curl above that. So this one could have some space. And for you technicians out there, we do have a double bottom pattern. We are above that neckline, but it's that 200 that has to be broken. If it can clear that, there is room for it to run. Let's take a look at this thing on the weekly to see what we're looking at there. The weekly, same thing. You have a beautiful double bottom pattern here. But on this chart, you can see that it's the 100 on the weekly at 192.65. That is the resistance. If it clears that, you have room up to 205.99. But this chart looks pretty fresh. Nice choice here. I will keep an eye on this one as well. The next one we are going to take a look at is MC. Let's wait for it to load here off of the cell phone. Man, I can't wait to get my internet back. This is McKesson Corporation. And this one, again, just kind of moving sideways here. And so the first thing that I think when I'm looking at this chart is you did have a bit of a head and shoulders pattern that came into play here. We broke down and we got below all of the moving averages. The death cross came in here. Typically, that's a lagging indicator. The move to the downside potentially is over after that occurs. But the question I'd be asking right now, all right, was this just consolidating down here? Now it's going to start to make a move. Your next point of resistance that you're going to watch is that 200 simple moving average at 826.93. Or here's the other question. Is this just a bearish flag that we are consolidating to the upside and we are about to get rejected and this thing is going to roll over for its next leg lower? So I would keep an eye on this one. You were deeply oversold at one point. You're starting to build some momentum here on the RSI. You did get back above that 50 line. So let's see what happens here. I do think you could have room short term up to that 200, 826.93, but watch to see if this thing is a bear flag and it's going to break down. The next one is NU, ticker symbol NU. Let's wait for this sucker to load here. I need the Jeopardy song playing in the background, but this is New Holdings. And again, this chart looks pretty similar to what we were looking at on MCK, but you had this breakdown here. It almost looks like exactly the same thing. Head and shoulders pattern, breakdown. You did get your death cross here, and you were oversold. We are starting to push above. We are back above the 10. We're above the 50. Your resistance overhead is going to be at 1431. That is your 100 simple moving average. And you do have a bit of an inverted head and shoulders pattern here. So if this thing could take out the overhead moving averages, this thing could run. Now, the difference between this chart and the MCK chart that we just looked at is this does have bullish structure here with this inverted head and shoulder. So I do like this chart a little bit better. However, you do have quite a bit of resistance in here with the point of control in those large volume nodes and those simple moving averages. So let's see what happens here. I'll be curious to check in with this chart next week. But you do have that nice pattern building and a nice uptick in the bullish volume there on MNU. Been getting a lot of questions here on Palantir. I know that Michael Burry did close his short position. We're seeing the bullish volume tick up. We are back above the 10-day exponential moving average. We nearly came up and tested the 50 SMA, which is right near that point of control, got rejected. And so let's see if this thing wants to chop around a bit, and let's see how it interacts with that 50. And again, in order for it to get above that 50, it's going to have to clear that point of control. And you have that 100 sitting right there. So this has a lot of work to do before it can get a push. So let's watch and see if it wants to consolidate and chop around here first. But if it can clear that 100, you do have room up to 157.91. That is your 200 simple moving average here on the daily chart. Let's see, can Palantir get going after just getting shellacked there for quite some time? But don't forget, you do have this April 2025 gap at 96.35 that potentially could come down and fill. Netflix finally starting getting some love this week. Good to see it. Netflix, good for you, man. Nearly came down and filled the October 2024 gap. It didn't quite get there at 70.47. And you did put in a nice little double bottom here. We have closed above the neckline. We close above the 20 EMA on the daily, and you have room now to run up to the 50 SMA on the daily at 84.12. So I do like this to the upside. I will actually be watching it this week for some day trades. I do like the bullish volume that is coming in here, and we are going to be getting earnings coming in on this ticker on the, let's check the date on this one. Of course, everything is slow to load. July 16th, that's when it's going to report, but I do like the Netflix charts looking pretty good. Rocket Lab, RKLB, this is for Justin. We had that nice push higher off of all that speculation and interest about the SpaceX IPO, and then bang, this thing sold down below the 100 simple moving average. It did try to push up here this past Thursday, but you could see where the resistance levels are and where it's getting rejected. It's right at that 50. It can't break above it. You can see those long upper wicks that come in here right by that point of control. That tells me that there is quite a bit of selling pressure in this area, and this one could roll back over. Now, keep an eye on this unfilled gap here from June 26 at 86.07 if it wants to drop back down. And then let's see what happens. Does it come down, fill that gap, reload, and start to push higher potentially? But that 50 simple moving average on the daily is a strong resistance. Now, coming over to KSS. Kohl's. No, this does not stand for keep it simple, stupid. This is Kohl's. And look at that massive double bottom. Oh my gosh, I haven't looked at this chart in forever. Wow. Beautiful. Here's the neckline right there with that 200. Pushed above it. Looks like it's coming down to retest that 200. This one has room to the upside. And where was I? I missed this rip here up to 25.22. When was that? Back in December. Good for Kohl's, man. I hope somebody out there is still holding the bag here as a bull, got in at one of these low prices. But this structure actually looks pretty nice with this double bottom. We're above all the moving averages. Let's just take a look at the weekly and see what is happening here before we stop looking at this chart. Again, we're waiting. I need the Jeopardy song to come in. It's not there. Okay, so keep this in mind. You do have that 200 on the weekly here. You did have a bearish Harami here on the weekly chart. And that resistance is at 20.05. So let's see if this one wants to break down. But you do have support there at the weekly point of control. But this does look pretty promising. I do like the structure. The structure is there on the weekly as well with that double bottom. So Kohl's could continue to run as well. Let's take a look at TEM. This was made famous by Nancy Pelosi back in, I believe, 2004, whenever she had bought some position in this, I believe, with call options before anybody really knew about it. And it pushed. And TEM for right now, man, there are lots of double bottoms that we're looking at here on the chart. There we go. Here's our neckline closed above it. We are on the weekly. We see the resistance on the weekly at 64.01. If it could press above that, you have no moving averages overhead on the weekly. And remember, those longer term time frames are real. So let's check out the daily on TEM to see what we're looking at here. But again, it does look pretty strong there on the weekly chart. And here on the daily, you could see the double bottom pattern here. The 200 SMA is serving as your resistance overhead. Again, if it could break above that, there's a lot of room for it to run. We have lots of unfilled gaps overhead. We have one here at 64.60. Looks like we have another one here at 84. So keep an eye on TEM. Courage community, you guys have submitted some great charts here today. I'm glad we were able to take a look at some of these. Rivian, this is for Mr. Benjamin. Ben, I hope you're having a great day. I hope you had a great 4th of July. Let's take a look at this chart as soon as it loads here. Here we go. We're waiting. Where's the Jeopardy music? There we go. So Rivian, again, man, we're above all the moving averages, but we're still in that range. We could see when we break above all the moving averages, we come right back down. Now, is that going to happen here again? Is this thing going to get rejected and come back down? Come down and test that trend line again and bounce, and we just keep ranging here? Or is it legitimately going to break out and retest these recent highs up here around 22.72? And the crazy thing, if you drill into the monthly, hopefully it doesn't take too long for this to load. Look at the all-time high on this beast. I don't know if it'll ever get back here, but $179 on Rivian. Again, this one just continues to be range bound. It breaks above the moving averages. It breaks down. I would expect more of that. And that was a big long upper wick that came in, but that's a big spike in bullish volume there. So keep an eye on Rivian. Coca-Cola. Ooh, look at that big bullish engulfing candle. Shaved top. Big strength from the bulls, decent volume that came in here above this recent high from June 11th, closed at 84.14. Is that an all-time high on Coca-Cola? I don't believe it is. Let's see here. Again, cue the Jeopardy music. Yeah, that was an all-time high. So this one is showing a little bit of strength. Again, Coca-Cola is not going to be a big mover. This is a nice dividend stock made famous by Warren Buffett. It pays 53 cents as its dividend. It is above all of its moving averages. Let's see what it wants to do here, but this is a conservative moving stock. It's not overbought, but I wouldn't anticipate too much more movement coming out of this. Could be decent for a swing trade, but if you're buying here, you're buying that big spike, you're chasing momentum, I would wait for a little bit of a retest to try to get in there. But that is a beautiful candle that we saw come in there on Thursday. Taking a look at Nvidia, that head and shoulders pattern that will get populated here on the screen here in a second as soon as it loads, because the internet is so slow here off of my phone. Here's the head and shoulders pattern. Bang. There it is. It broke down. We finally tested that 200 simple moving average. Now, are we going to come down and test it again? Are we going to break below it, hit that point of control 180 and then go higher? Or is that enough here and we're going to start to head higher? Remember, I talked about on the previous Sunday setups that we're just basically retesting this range here where Nvidia chopped around for a year. Is it going to push out of there? We'll see. But again, we're down near that 200. It's got to start showing something. Chip stocks have taken a break. Maybe they'll get ready to move here this week. MU took a big shot there the last couple days after that big spike up off of earnings. We are down below the 10-day exponential moving average at 20 exponential moving average. Are we going to come down to the 50 EMA? Can we test that 50 SMA potentially? We do have an unfilled gap here at 781.48. You would think if we come down and test this area, retest this area, that you would have buyers step in here. But what I'm going to watch is that 50 EMA, the 50 SMA first to see if buyers will step in. But that is a decent amount of bearish volume that came in here. We are below that 50 line for the first time since April. So I think that this one may have a little bit more profit taking to go. So I'll just keep an eye on that one. SpaceX, this one, after the big rip that it had when it started, is doing a whole lot of nothing. It pushed up here to 225.69. Really hasn't done much. We finally got the 10 EMA on the daily show up. Try to push above that on Wednesday. Rejected back down. Sitting right on the point of control. Closed at 162. Let's see. This thing's probably just going to chop around here for a little bit longer, but not doing much of anything. Again, I own this long term. I haven't traded it yet, but I need more information on this chart before I feel like doing anything with it. So I had a request for TSLA. This is a Tesla levered long position. And instead of looking at this chart, I'm going to actually just look at the Tesla chart. So let's take a look at Tesla. Was making a nice little push here After we had that head and shoulders pattern, we broke out. It looked like we were going to break that structure. But what came in here on Thursday, we got some significant selling after we pushed above that 200. And in one candle, we took out the 200 SMA, the 50 SMA, and the 100 SMA on strong bearish volume. Let's see if this thing wants to continue to break lower, because that is a big old beastly candle if I've ever seen one. And we took out 1, 2, and almost 3 bullish candles with 1 bear candle. So big, strong push by the bears. Looks like more downside in the cards there. And then Roblox, this one continues to push. Double bottom. This 50 where it faced a bit of rejection, squeezed out of it, filled the gap here right at $55, pushed above the 100, came back down, retested the 100, and now it has room up to 77.90. Keep an eye on Roblox here. You have your next unfilled gap at 59.56. You have another unfilled gap here at 65.14, and watch that 200 at 77.90. Remember, Roblox went on an absolute tear in the spring and summer of 2025. Can it repeat that? Who knows? It's just getting started, but it has been a fun chart to watch here as of late. And then the last ticker that we're going to look at, V. This was a chart we looked at a few weeks ago, and I thought that it looked pretty promising. Let's wait for the moving averages to load up here on the screen. And we're really just hanging on to this 200 simple moving average as a support. And what I pointed out when I looked at this the last time, I said, watch that 100 to see what it did there. And we could see that it got rejected off that 100, and it's come back down and actually has broken below the 200. So right now, we just want to watch this one consolidate, and it's got to get back above that 10 to have any indication that we could take it long. You do have a lot of support here on the visible range volume profile, but watch this 50 coming to potentially cross down below the 200. That would not be a good sign for the bulls, as that would indicate more bearishness. So this one is not yet ready. We've got to see build out some structure, supportive structure for the bull. It's just not there yet, and we are below the 50 line, and we saw some strong bearish volume come in on Friday.
So there you have it. You are now prepared for the week ahead. Can the bulls start setting some new recent highs, or will the pattern of lower highs continue? Weakness will continue to seep in the market, and potentially we get that seasonal weakness start early. Who knows what's going to happen, but I am here for it. I know that you are, and hopefully my internet comes back soon. But I appreciate you joining me for this episode. Drop in the comments below, which setup are you watching this week? And I'll see you back here next week for a brand new Sunday setup. Take care, everyone.
Running down the fix, don't care.